And now it's Deborah Kobylt Live.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us today on Deborah Kobylt Live. I'm so pleased to announce our guest today, Katie Beecher, licensed therapist, counselor, also an intuitive therapist, who wrote this book, Heal from Within, a guidebook to intuitive wellness. Gosh, Katie, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, I've loved talking to you because we also spoke off camera. You have so much advice to share with us. The first thing I want to ask you is Heal from Within. What is this book about and why did you write it for us?
So this book is about looking at all of the components in your life, both positive and I don't really like to use the word negative, but things that might be upsetting you or making you ill or whatever. Looking at everything. So physical, emotional, and spiritual, and seeing how they are impacting you. Looking at all of the root causes for problems you might be having, things you can do to improve your life, and also connecting to your intuition. And by looking at yourself as a whole person and figuring out what you want to work on, what your strengths are, you can make your emotional, physical, and spiritual life as happy and healthy as possible. And
is this, oh, sorry, go ahead, please.
No, go ahead.
Is this different than traditional therapy? Because very often traditional therapy will go back into your life for an extended period of time. And I know just from talking to people, myself, whatever, you can get sort of stuck in that area without moving forward. And then you start to say to yourself, well, what am I benefiting from this? Like, how is this different than certain traditional therapies?
Sure. So part of the way I work is from my own healing experience, which I'll talk about. Some of it is Jungian psychology, which I'll talk a little about too. But, my own philosophy is that while it's important to know how your past has affected you, to understand, right. I really like to look at what's going on now and how people can move forward, because we have a lot of old, misguided, untrue ideas and feelings stuck in our heads from people who didn't tell us the truth or experiences we had that weren't valid. So I don't think it's especially helpful to continue rehashing things over and over again. I think it brings you into the past. It brings you back into that pain and feeling the shame or the helplessness or whatever. And I think it's much more important to see how has that affected me? Like, has it affected my self-esteem? How has it affected maybe my ability to express myself? What can I do about those things right now? And then how can I move forward?
That's very important, because I brought up being stuck for a reason. I mean, just very often that can happen. You don't get to that next level. How do you teach people to get to that next level if they are understandably stuck on something pretty awful that happened to them? And then we'll talk, if you don't mind, what happened to you. So could you answer to that? Like, how do you get to that next level? Look, this is really hard to do in an interview, right? But maybe you can impart some of your knowledge to some of our viewers.
It's very, very important to me, no matter what I am talking to people about, that I help people feel empowered and that I help people connect to their intuition as a source of self-love and self-acceptance and protection. So I try to start with, what's the biggest thing that is challenging you right now? Let's start with one thing, because life can be overwhelming and we can attach all these little stressors, to one thing. So let's start with one. Let's work on just some self-acceptance, getting to know yourself. What characteristics do you have? Who are you? As down to, like, do you like broccoli? What color eyes you have, whatever, so that you're actually in the now. And thinking about, what do you want? What do you want your life to be like? A lot of people who are stuck in the past or stuck in illness mode or something like that, it's really about fear. It's about not knowing how to move forward, or being afraid of irritating people or being abandoned if they move forward and change. So it's kind of trying to go from where I'm at, where do I want to be, and what are even, little baby steps to get there. It doesn't happen overnight, but let's start with something so you feel empowered and connect to your intuition. So what other people think about you isn't so important. Just start by where you're at.
How do you do that? Do you perhaps try and connect with some positive attributes that we have and stay connected with that? Like, what would you tell a person to start that journey?
Yeah, definitely. I help people to look at, so you've been through challenges, okay? And you may be thinking about or perseverating on this trauma that you had, or this challenge or whatever. A lot of that is about feeling hopeless and helpless, like things have happened to you. So we talk about what, if anything, was your role in that? And what I mean by that is not a blame, but just, did your intuition give you any signals about maybe that the person you're in a relationship with really wasn't the best guy or girl or whatever, what happened when you met them with illness, kind of what was going on in your life? Did you get any signals that maybe you needed to be taking better care of yourself? What was your role in listening to or ignoring, and responding to your intuition? So just that is empowering. And then looking at, okay, so part of the fear is that you're afraid this will happen again. You're afraid that all of these forces around you cause this to happen. You've been through the roughest part of it. You've already been through the trauma, been through the tough part. So how about looking at yourself as a really strong person who has survived this, who has taken charge in a lot of ways, even if it feels like you might not have. So yeah, really trying to focus on the strengths and what the person has already done, all the work they've already done, because it sometimes feels like you haven't done any work at all, but really trying to focus on all of the good stuff, and not like, you don't have to live in that fear and ick anymore.
That's a very good point. I like that you said that. You've already been through the hard stuff and you got through it. You're right. A lot of times we don't look at it, and instead we're looking at the trauma, the post-trauma, which is quite a bit, of course, right? Because there is post-trauma. Right. But it's true. We already got through it. Now we have to recognize that. That's a good one. I'm going to keep that with me. So thanks. That's a really, really good one. But then how do we keep that going without slipping back into old habits? Because that's something I will do. How do we stop from being emotional and jumping in? Okay, I'll tell you something about me. If you want to give me a little bit of counseling, I will jump in and try and fix it. It's like, oh, no, I didn't do that because, oh, look, I did this because. And it's like, I'm always trying to prove that, no, that's not, which is ridiculous, because then it just keeps going. Like, how do you just say, stop? How do you,
right? So the first step is recognizing you can do it. Okay. That is because of control. Because you want control over that situation. If you were to step back, and it's also from not necessarily feeling safe and not respecting other people's boundaries. So if you do the thing and you step back and let the sequence happen, like you said something or whatever, and then it's like, oh, no, I have to fix it right now. What about just sitting back, thinking before you speak, listening to your intuition before you speak, letting your intuition tell you how to respond. And then if you wait and you realize, oh, I didn't have to do whatever I did immediately. I'm a good one for that too. I'm like, oh, acting too okay. My husband's always like, chill. You don't have to figure, you don't have to fix that right now. Let things happen. Maybe things will happen better, turn out better than you thought they would have. Maybe that came out of your mouth for a reason. Maybe you did that for a reason. And instead of just trusting, being okay, trusting yourself that you can handle any repercussions, just kind of let it, see what occurs. Change isn't linear. Change is, 3 steps forward, 1 step back. It's learning. It's gaining confidence in ourselves. It's allowing our intuition to be there. If we step in all the time and fix, our intuition can't even talk to us. It can't do its job. You're just like control mode, you know? So it's
any tools to just say, don't do that. Like when you want to jump in, any tools to hold you back? There's got to be like, you know, they say tapping helps, right? Like there's all these different little things. Any something that works for you or for people that you counsel?
Part of hearing my husband's voice in my head.
I love that.
You know, he's my steady person. You know, I tend to be more emotional and impulsive and things, and he's just my steady. There's no need to hurry, just lay back. So having his voice in my head, or it could be your own voice in your head saying, you know what, hold up, you can do this differently. Telling yourself you're going to do things differently. So recognizing the impulse and then being like, I'm just going to count to 5 if you can't do 10. And, you know, little things, eventually it will come more easily, and it will happen more easily, and you won't have that behavior that you're so used to. It's like unlearning a behavior, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, it's keeping those voices in my head when I have the impulse to like react to something or act quickly.
Look, you said counting to 5. It might seem like a simple one, but those little tricks do work. Stop if you can stop yourself, just stop. And you're right, you might not get to 10, so give it 5. And if at all possible, right, as long as you're not driving or something, close your eyes. At least that will work for me. Like close your eyes and count, because Deborah, it really does bring you back to center. I think when you just take a pause, I like to say, I have to follow those words myself, but taking a pause is a good one.
Sometimes me too, if I have the urge to answer an email very quickly or something, I'm like, I'm going to close my computer right now and just wait and chill and get up and walk away. And then I think about it, I'm like, oh, that was a way better response than I would have made had I just answered back quickly or something.
Yep, I now put those emails into draft. I will not send them. I'll put them into draft, and I'll go read them later on. And I'm like, thank God I didn't send that one, because and sometimes I never send it at all. And it's just, that's all I needed to write things down. We'll talk about writing things down. Talk to me about you. How did you get into this line of work? And you were very young when you sort of figured out what you needed, right? Could you talk to us about that?
Yeah. So my healing work is why I wrote the book. I came from a pretty dysfunctional family, was bullied when I was 11 because I went through puberty too early, and the small group of girls I went to school with decided that was not okay for whatever reason. So there was, you know, shame attached to my body, and was always very intuitive, very empathic, could always pick up energy of other people and spirit and things, didn't know what it was, didn't have anyone to talk to about it. And starting around the age of 12, I developed a pretty severe eating disorder. It started with, started with restricting and went through all sorts of fun iterations, but I ended up very bulimic, throwing up 3 times a day, to the point where I decided that life really was not worth living anymore. And I was 16 at that point. And it really was divine intervention that made me call our pediatrician. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell anyone. I just came home from school one day and said, you know, I don't really think I want to go through with that suicide plan that I have. So I'm going to give this a shot. I don't know what else to do. So I called him. He recommended a Jungian therapist in town. I had a car and a job. So I went. Took me 2 months to get the courage to go to the therapist, but that's okay.
Wow.
You know?
Wow. That's pretty adult of you to have done that. But yeah, go ahead. And then you went.
Yeah. So I went, and I was just ready. I was ready. Yeah. I was in enough pain. Jungian counseling is pretty amazing because it's very intuition focused. They believe that you have the answers within yourself. It's about empowerment, self-love, acceptance, listening, bringing out all of the parts of yourself. So that's what shadow work comes in. It's Jungian. And they use a lot of different modalities. A lot of the stuff some of the actual tools in my book are from Jungian psychology, because it's really good stuff. It can be hard to understand. So I wanted to make it understandable and usable for people. And it's worked for me for the past, dear Lord, over 30 years. So we did that. And I heard from my guides at that point that connection to intuition, self-love and self-acceptance will help you heal from anything. And that my experience was not bad at all. It was a huge gift. It was supposed to happen. I was supposed to take this information and use it to help others and teach others. And I was supposed to write this book. It, again, took a while for the book to emerge. But so then I became a licensed counselor, worked really intuitively, meaning instead of going by just kind of theories and things, I let my guides tell me what people needed and what to do. I always worked very, Jungianly as well. But then I started to inadvertently channel people's loved ones during therapy sessions. So that was weird. When I was trying to help them, their loved ones would come through and I'd get information for them. And I didn't ask for it to happen. It just started happening. So it was freaky and natural at the same time, but I realized I need to address this and not push these abilities down. And, that's what I learned in therapy, to basically be okay with my weirdness. And did that, for a while, and then just started learning more about mediumship and intuition. And about 10 years ago, I found out that I could do this medical intuition piece, being able to look into people's bodies and know things about their whole entire life. And that really seems to be my calling. And I've been doing that ever since then.
Couple of questions. Guides. You say your guides were telling you. Who were these guides?
Great question. So at first, when I was talking to this, I called it kind of my inner voice. I didn't know what intuition was. I had no connection to self-love or anything like that. So I decided to talk to God. And God as my source. So God as something filled with love that loved me no matter what, that didn't judge me, that was always there for me, keeping me safe. And I allowed loving messages to come from God. Eventually, they were able to come from me too. So down the road, realized that as I talked to my intuition and God, I was really also talking to these guides. Now, that has different meaning for everyone. We all have guides. We all have an army of them. For me, when I focus in on that, I'm sitting at kind of a half table, and there's a Native American older gentleman, there's a Native American older woman, there's a younger woman, my grandmother and my mother, and then there's rows and rows of people, and I don't know who they are, but they're just there. I've never seen the face of any of my guides. I don't know their names. It really doesn't matter. But
so that's what the guide is to you, right? You've got it. And for some of us, it could be our inner guide, right? There's something like our intuition, or just if we dig deep, right? There's something in there that's guiding us. And very often we don't listen to those guides, whether it's the guides that are at your table that aren't speaking to you, but they're there. To you, they are there. Or a guide that's within us that we're not listening to. So my question is to you, how do you listen to your intuition? How do you develop intuition, and how do you listen to it?
So this is in my book, explained in detail in my book. This is one of my favorite things to teach. And it's how I connect to intuition. It is what I learned when I was 16. This saved my life. You come up with some sort of question or just your feelings or whatever, and physically write out this message or your feelings or thoughts and direct it to your intuition. When I say that, you could direct it to God, you could direct it to nature, you can direct it to the universe, a tree, whatever, something loving. So you write the thing out, and then whatever you hear or feel in response to what you wrote, you write that down, and then you write back to it. And then whatever you get, write that down, write back to it. So you're having a written conversation with this loving voice that is there to protect you and heal you and keep you safe and all that kind of good stuff. Now,
Yeah.
What I often do is I will just say, do you have anything to tell me? Or I'll just start writing and ask for feedback, or I will ask a question. So there's no rules. Sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it's half hour, whatever. And doing this in writing is extremely powerful because, first of all, you have to stop what you're doing to write.
Right.
It filters out a lot of the, what was I thinking about yesterday, or the trauma from yesterday, or the whatever, or the what am I having for dinner, or the whatever. It really helps you to focus in on that conversation. Because you are physically writing, your body is automatically involved. We get a lot of intuitive signals from our body, a lot of them. And even our symptoms are signals from our intuition. So I'm going to talk about obstacles to connecting. I also want to talk about another way to use this. When I was healing from my eating disorder, I talked to the eating disorder. And I talked to it like it was my friend.
Right. Because you did, I don't mean to interrupt you, but you did talk about that. Like, how can I help you heal me? I actually think that's kind of brilliant, right? You talk to what's ailing you. It's not like this little thing in the sky. It's just that you talk to what's happening and say, and, very often we do that, right? We just say, dear God, please help. Or you're talking through what you need to have happen. In this case, you're talking to what's ailing you. I think that's actually pretty brilliant. So you talk to this ailment of yours, right? Or I talk to mine. And
Right.
Then what? Like, what do we get from that exercise?
Right. So the goal is to talk to it like it's your friend, like it's there to help you. Like, instead of I have to fight this, it's there because I'm a bad person. It's there because there's something wrong with me. All of those things that we've been, traditional medicine is you have to fight this and get rid of it. And it's awful. And it's like, but looking at it like it's there for a reason, even something like anxiety, which plagues so many people. Mm-hmm. What if you're anxious for a darn good reason? What if that anxiety is warning you about something or telling you that you are doing something that is inauthentic, or you're not expressing yourself, or you're in this bad relationship? Like, anxiety doesn't come out of the blue. There's a reason. So instead of fighting it and feeling like there's something wrong with you, ask it why it's there and what it wants to teach you. So that's basically where you take this exercise, is you listen to what your body, the symptom, intuition has to say, and then you respond. Now, as I say that, one of the fears about doing this, one of the obstacles about doing this, is that people often think if I listen to my intuition, I have to respond immediately. And if I'm listening to my feelings, then I immediately have to do something about it. A lot of us know what we need to do and we're ignoring it, right? So if we listen to our intuition, it's like, oh my God, then I must have to do that right now. And you might not be ready. You might be like, I do know that, but I don't know how to get there. I don't know what it's going to mean. Maybe I can just do a little piece, or maybe I just let it sit and let it be there. But that's a lot of the fear stuff people get into. Or what if I do it and I'm wrong? So it's about first listening, and then letting yourself sit with it, and then deciding how you want to respond to that information. And that's different for everybody. So it's, all the stuff I do is super individualized, but that's the kind of overall.
I love also you talk about sensitivity. You talk about being connected to animals, to nature. I think very often, to your point, the answers are there. We're not just asking the right questions. And in our society, I just don't think we stop to take a moment to ask those questions, because we're always running to something. And I think that's probably our world, but it's certainly very much part of our culture here in the United States, right? So how do you suggest getting a hold of that? We try, but sometimes we don't do it right, if you will.
And we have no patience anymore, because if something, takes longer than a second to come up on our screen, there's something wrong with the Wi-Fi.
Right.
So it's at least for me, it's been about having patience with myself, with not being so hard on myself, with being like, you're a human, other people are humans. You don't put yourself above or below other people, just be like allowing yourself to be, and to make mistakes, to learn in your own way, to try and fail, to just kind of find your own way that doesn't have to be the way other people did it. Like, I think we look at other people, especially with social media, and think, well, they have their shit together. You know, oops, they have like, you know, all this, they have it all down. They have money. They must be happy. They blah, blah, blah. And, you know, you and I both know that's not the case. So it's first about just coming from a place of acceptance and love from yourself, and not expecting things to happen too quickly, or just kind of, you know, maybe that day they won't happen at all, and that's okay too.
I love that. We've spoken about intuition. We've spoken about so much here. In a lot of it, the common theme is giving yourself a chance, a moment to pause. In your book, so hang on, let me get to this. There's a lot in your book. Part 1, you talk about you are never alone, and that's about your intuition. There's a lot about intuition that you talk about. You also talk about healing using your chakra, right? The 4th chakra, using the 2nd when it comes to like your power and life purpose. Could you very briefly, because a lot of people don't really know what that is. What does that even mean when you talk about that?
Chakras are energy centers in the body. It's a concept that's been around forever, mostly Eastern traditions.
Right.
And each chakra has an associated set of physical and spiritual and emotional characteristics. They each have certain places in the body that they're associated with. So for example, 2nd chakra is in kind of the reproductive area, the hips, the lower back, large intestines physically. And then emotionally, it often has to do with female energy and power, or male energy and power, depending on where you're coming from. We both have both. It's about reproductive systems, so sexual health, sexual energy, empowerment, career, so like career versus family, relationships, things like that. So that's just an example of 2nd. But each chakra, they're described as ad nauseum in my book. But the way that I use them is when you put all of the chakras together, you get a whole person. And it's, for me, using the chakra system helps me to, number one, make sure that I've included every part of a person. So I kind of start with the 7th, which is at the top of the head, look at those emotional and physical things, be like, all right, guides, what am I getting from that? What am I getting about that person for that area? And then I kind of work my way down the body. So it makes sure that I cover everything. But it also helps you see patterns. So let's say I'm working with somebody who has a hip injury, who has had a hysterectomy, who's had a lot of stuff in that 2nd chakra area. And through the report that I do, which I give to people before we meet, just with a name and age, my guides reveal that they've been sexually abused, and that, what else can I say about that? They grew up in a family that really didn't treat women with respect. So they've had emotional and spiritual 2nd chakra issues, which then were reflected in the physical issues in their body. And it sounds kind of weird, but it's just this thing I see constantly.
Let me ask you, you said when you ask people their age and all that, tell me how that works. Like if I wanted to have some counseling with you, and what do you ask from me so that you can then help me or anybody that you would work
so
with?
Literally I start with just a name and an age. I have to get their contact information to be able to email them and do a Zoom or whatever. But 99% of the time, I don't see a picture. I don't know anything else about them. I don't want to know anything about them. I don't want to know, because I want my guides to tune in and do this work. And if I know things, my humanness will make assumptions sometimes, which I have to be careful of. So I create a 4-page detailed report, which with everything about their entire life that comes to me. It can be early childhood, it's relationships, it's career, strengths, intuitive abilities, literally everything, physical symptoms, like just so much stuff. And then I also create a symbolic watercolor painting. It's an energy painting. This is, I'm gonna cover up the name. This is just one example. They're all completely different. Like for every single person, they're totally different. And sometimes I make a figure, sometimes I make a plant, an animal, whatever my guides tell me to make. But everything on there is significant. So the colors, the placement of the arms, the color of the legs, the if there's an emphasis put, let's say, on the second chakra, again, a lot of the times I will pick up trauma, some kind of abuse in that area through the symbolic painting. So it's kind of it's a very complete view of the person. And I send that before we meet. We meet for about an hour, go over everything, have people let me know, how does this resonate? What do you think? We teach them about their intuition. We problem solve. We look at solutions, different, options. What have you done so far? Where do you want to take this? And if it's physical things, I'm not a doctor. I'm not allowed to diagnose her, but I can point out, I can point out like this has similarities to Lyme disease, or I'm picking up these symptoms or whatever. I can help with some physical things, but I also have people that I trust that I refer to take it further, like, licensed medical professionals and things like that. So,
right. And you are a licensed counselor, and what you do is you practice, traditional licensed therapy with sort of the metaphysical, right? With the mindfulness, you sort of combine everything, which is a very interesting approach to sort of figuring out, helping us all figure out what might be going on. And certainly this approach has worked for you, right? That's why you do it.
Exactly. Yeah. This is what healed me. It's when I had Lyme disease, this is what helped me to heal. I've been doing this for, over 30 years and it works, and everybody's different, which is really kind of the fun of it.
Right.
Too.
Yeah. But you've had tremendous success. I mean, all we need to do is read about you and look you up, and you have had some tremendous success because I think you really combine various principles. And it's not just one, we are our intuition. There's so much involved. There's traditional ways of doing things. And then there are ways that are doing things that, frankly, have been going on for centuries. It's just sometimes it's a new thing to those of us in modern society. But in a way, you're really using principles that have been for centuries that have been very helpful to so many. So I really appreciate that. So I want to tell people, please pick up this book. I found it very inspirational. Heal from Within, a guidebook to intuitive wellness. That's very important. Intuitive wellness combined with traditional ways of handling what's going on. I find that it's sort of the whole approach. Tell people how they can get in touch with you, your website and all that stuff.
Yeah. So to make an appointment for a reading, to find out about workshops, I have a workshop coming up online May 7th. It's virtual. I just said online, so virtual. It's May 7th. It's a 3-hour thing talking about a lot of these principles, teaching you about connecting to intuition and the other side and your healing. And I teach people how to do these paintings online too. That's kind of cool. You don't need any artistic ability, obviously. So you can learn about that. My website is Beecher, KatieBeecher.com. And the book is everywhere. So Amazon, Barnes and Noble, whatever. It's hardcover, Kindle, and audio, all forms. I actually narrated my book, so that was super fun. And I'm on Instagram, Katie Beecher Medical Intuitive, and Facebook, and There's a Facebook group for the book and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic read. I got an awful lot from it. A lot of what I think is right, it sort of was confirmed for me in here.
Right.
It's like, well, maybe I'll approach it this way, which leads me back to something important that you talk about, intuition. So people follow that intuition. It's given to us for a reason. And guides, you might call them guides. I call them the little people that are inside me, part of my intuition, giving me guidance. So listen to that. And you talk about a lot of that in this book. So I'm very excited that you joined us today. I hope people join you. And I think that's great that you're doing that workshop in May. So I hope people sign up for that too. So that's great. Any parting words you'd like to tell our audience?
Just to know that whatever you are experiencing or have experienced, you can heal, you can help yourself. And it may be really hard. You know, my book is a step-by-step process, but I'm not going to tell you every part of it's easy. And you can take your time and go at your own pace. But it's not about band-aiding. It's not about taking a medicine or an herb, or it's about really getting in there and getting to the root stuff so you can permanently heal and have a better life and be authentic.
Yeah, and listen to that intuition. Katie Beecher, thanks so much for joining us. Heal from within. And check out that online, not course, what does it call it? I think that's
class.
Yeah, online class. That actually sounds terrific. I'm going to push that out on my social media. That could be helpful to a lot of people. So thanks very much for joining us. And everybody, you could find our show, Deborah Kobylt Live, on all platforms, YouTube, Facebook, and IGTV. And then, of course, we push it out on all of our audio platforms. It's just about everywhere, from iHeartRadio to anywhere else that you get your audio podcasts as well. So thank you very much for tuning in. I am your host, Deborah Zara Kobylt. And please look up Katie Beecher and Heal from Within.